Hey guys, it's Drew. Thank you for checking out the Sober Fix podcast, where we talk about addiction and living life sober, one day at a time. If you like what you hear, go ahead and follow us. And if you get some time, check out our Instagram page at the Sober Fix podcast, and also our YouTube and TikTok at the Sober Fix. Hope you enjoy the episode. What is up, everyone? We are at another episode of the Sober Fix podcast. I'm excited today. We've got our Ask It basket, or questions from Rehab, from Robert Pardon, who is on here again. You guys will recognize him. He's been on for a few episodes, and I love when he comes on. And he has brought a friend. We've got Whitney on today. And again, if you haven't heard any of the episodes before, Robert goes to different treatment centers, and he allows those that are new and those that are in the treatment center to come up with questions, those that are early on in sobriety. And a lot of us always have questions as to how we start this journey or how we continue the journey, what we do to get sober, sponsorship, all types of different stuff. So I want to welcome both of you guys on today. And just as like a little introduction, Whitney, how long do you have sober? Can you just give us a little bit of your story?
Yeah, no, I just passed 9 months, so I'm pretty new to recovery, but I feel like it's going real well. Thank you. And nothing like 38 years, but we definitely live and work the same program, and it works. So we're gonna keep on rolling that way with it.
That's awesome. And congratulations on that. Robert, how you doing, man? I got to see you this weekend. It was
I
super
know.
cool.
I know. I love the relationship that we're building, and one of the advantages of knowing Whitney is we live in the same area, and so we've had an opportunity to go into treatment centers together and to share face to face what you and I do over the airwaves. But it was great seeing you this last weekend, and just looking forward to the journey. And really, Whitney, congratulations on 9 months. One of the reasons that I love you is you have such a mature perspective about what recovery is and how to go about it. And I find you to be invaluable. Sometimes time is your adversary, because I think sometimes when we get time, we have a tendency to think we know more than we need to know. And so my relationship with you, and of course, Drew and others who haven't been around long, it keeps me in that learning mode, because I either need to learn something new or I need to learn a new approach to something that I've known for a long time. And that makes you invaluable to the people that I would meet. So every time I go into a treatment center or an opportunity to speak or to serve, I always remember the perspective that you give to me that makes me more valuable.
Well, I love that. And it is probably nice to have like a fresh, newcomer perspective to add to your mix. And it's it's been a crazy journey so far. So I feel like you as a mentor have guided me through this process quite a bit in an amazing way. So I really appreciate what you've done for my recovery, and I'm just looking forward to many more years. So
Me too. That means I'll be alive for a lot longer, which is a good thing. I try to stay in shape, go to the gym. I went to the gym again today, and just try to. The older I get, the more necessary it is to stay fit and stay in shape, and it's that being an alignment concept. It's the mental, the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual. And unless those aspects are in alignment, going in the same direction at the same time, then we're off balance. And we're not a people who stay off balance very good for very long.
Yeah, that's never a good mix.
Having the whole health approach, I think spiritual, physical, mental, everything's got to be there and well balanced. And it's a little shaky when you're in early recovery. It's a little bit shaky, a little off balance. But I definitely appreciate the approach of getting good exercise, good nutrition, all those different things. And it's a good way to find a good balance.
Yeah.
So.
Well, even though you're new, though, Whitney, doesn't mean, and I want the audience to know, you're very service minded. I mean, you're involved in a service position now, and I think that adds to the fullness of your recovery.
Absolutely. The chances I've had, especially recently, to do service and to work with my sponsees and see that light go on in them, and then just it's the whole circle, and it just inspires me to want to do more and more service. And these chances I get to get, on these podcasts or go into treatment centers with you, I learn so much every time from the newcomers, even more newcomer than me, but yeah, it's been a great experience, and I think that's what keeps my sobriety fresh and going is the service and being that service minded state of mind now. So yeah,
Great. Should we bring Drew into the conversation at any point?
please, yes.
Oh, I'm just hanging out. I'm just here to listen to you guys.
Whitney and I could talk over coffee, and you'd never get a word in edgewise.
Hours later, yeah.
No, I agree with both of you, and I think that even so, you have 9 months, which is a huge deal, and to me, that's always been a long time. But those that are even less than a year, even 6 months sober, it's when they get connected to the right people and they have the right sponsorship and they're doing their meetings and stuff and they have their program and they're shown into service. It just seems like they develop so fast and start helping people right away. Do you agree with that, Robert?
I do. Matter of fact, that was the one, and I've told this story before. When I was at that jumping off place, I had already relapsed, and I was sober again about 6 months, and I was really concerned. I was almost as afraid as I was the day I went into recovery to treatment. And I'd asked my sponsor, "What do I need to do? Because if I go back out, I'm never coming back." And he introduced me to doing more than just cleaning ashtrays and making coffee. He got me involved in 12-step work in Las Vegas and going to hotel rooms and meeting individuals who had relapsed. And it was really an eye opener. And it's what launched me into H&I, hospitals and institutions. It was really the jumping off place for me to really getting into serving others, not just things. And when I started serving others, I realized that was the missing ingredient, the completion of step 12. When I really started working 12 steps, it added such a dynamic because it switched the emphasis from me to we. And I fully understood what it was like to try to carry the message, and instead of just carrying me and my sobriety one day at a time.
Yeah, and I was the same way when I first got sober. If I would have wrote down all the things that I wanted in the very beginning, it was all materialistic. It was like I want money, I want a new job, I want an apartment, I want this, I want that. And I would have sold myself very short as to what ended up happening just in the peace of mind aspect and waking up and not having to serve alcohol, not having to chase drugs around all day and having all these connections with people and the higher power and seeing, like Whitney said, seeing people start to get this program.
Yeah.
I just would have sold myself short. I wanted stuff in the beginning because I hadn't had it. I just hadn't had it for years. I was always, spending all my money on the alcohol and stuff. So I wanted that stuff. And I started to kind of get it as I worked hard. And then I realized, like, this isn't it. Like, there's no amount of stuff for me as an alcoholic that's really going to keep me going. Once I got involved in the service, that's when I realized, okay, this is what this is about. This is how people stay sober for years.
I
All
agree.
right, let me see what we got here. I think I'll start off with you, Whitney. I think the first question that I wrote down is, how do you prevent getting stagnant, or I guess either stagnant or complacent in your recovery?
That's a great question. And that's actually the demise in my previous times trying to get sober. I'd get so many months, and then I wouldn't be working a program or have a healthy, system going, and I would relapse because I got complacent. So the difference this time is I picked up this program, and I was resistant to the 12 steps for so many years, but I finally, sipped on the Kool-Aid, and it's worked like a dream to me. Um, Staying out of complacency, that's where the service comes in for me, because you get through the steps and you work on you and you work on loving yourself again, and then you're done, and it never ends. You can always keep that fresh, and that's why with working with sponsees and sharing the message is huge on staying out of the complacency thing. Um, yeah, yeah, service is where I go with that one. So, and it brings so much joy. I mean, it's it's what I get most joy out of now in my recovery is the service, and it's almost as if, it's a better high than I ever had using drugs. When I can help another person, when I can see another person succeed, um, it brings more joy and more of a high to me. It's better than anything I ever experienced in my active addiction. So I believe in service 100%.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There's a high or a buzz to be had here in sobriety. What about you, Robert? For those that have been sober for a longer period of time, how do you stay out of complacency with so many years of sobriety or recovery?
Going back to time can be your friend or time can be your enemy. And Bill and Bob warn about that in the big book in terms of resting on our laurels. And I have found myself being more active when I turned 30 years sober. Just almost a light went on, saying that it can be a trap. And the trap is, I've been sober long enough, I know enough, I don't need to reach people, I've already done my share, right? And stagnant actually comes from the Latin word stagmata, which means standing water, is what stagnation means. It come from the Latin. And so what I envision is, it's scientifically impossible to fill a cup that isn't empty. And so my desire every day is to empty my cup, and overnight my higher power fills my cup. So my cup is always fresh. It's always moving, because there's always water going out. And I love a full cup as much as the next person. So there's always water coming in. So even as I go throughout my day, uh, I tell people, and I think I've told this to Whitney, there was a person who was feeling drained as a result of service. And I talked to this person about giving out of their abundance rather than giving out of their deficiency. So they were giving, draining the lake, but they weren't filling the lake consequently. So I need my higher power and I need others. So as I give to others, my higher power, because my higher power knows that I'm going to do the will, I'm going to take care of God's kids. My higher power knows to always fill my cup, because my higher power knows, God knows that I'm going to empty my cup. And that's how I stay away from stagnation.
Yeah, I love how you put that. And I've hit that place before where I was trying to do a lot of stuff, giving away, but I didn't have anything in my cup, and I soon realized, oh man, like there's some other things I need to get back to kind of basics, for me is what happened. I want to go on to the next question here. It says, and I'll go to you first again, Whitney. Was it hard to stop drinking as a lifetime decision in recovery?
Well, I mean, that's an obvious answer. Yes. Initially, a lot of us don't go searching for recovery, you know, by choice. A lot of us are forced into it. So that first week is pretty easy because you're locked in and you can't get access to anything even if you wanted it. But um, when you get through that hump and you start working the program, yeah, you have cravings, and yeah, you have, well, not cravings, more of the obsession, shoots up and comes in and out of your life. But now you have a plan for that, and for me, I always had a system and I was always prepared, or I tried to be prepared. It initially started with having a conscious contact with my higher power. And so I'd reach out to my higher power. But another thing that really helped me was telling on myself. I tell on myself to, and stay accountable with, somebody else in the program, and that would keep some extra insurance there. And then lastly, I know I've kind of hit the head on this a bunch, but service and serving others, getting outside of yourself to help another person. Those are all three great things to like avoid the obsession in early recovery for me. And so, yeah, I mean, it was hard, obviously, but if you have a program and you have some tools to, march through your recovery, it gets a lot less difficult as you go on. And after I've worked the steps and gone through the steps and, done all that fun work, that obsession for me has kind of been removed. And for me to say that, I mean, if you had known me before, it is insane to think it's a miracle that I don't have that obsession anymore. I mean, it really is. And so I'm so grateful for that. But it does get better. You just have to find a way.
Yeah, it does. As I try to tell people, I'm like, man, I promise you it's going to get better, when they're just starting off and things are kind of rough. Thank you for that answer. I want to go to you, Robert. This is an interesting one. It says, how do I trust a sponsor or mentor again now that I experience a sponsor or mentor sharing my personal things?
That is really rough, especially early on because you're being betrayed by a person that convinced you that they were trustworthy. And you just do it. You believe in what needs to be done more than you believe in the person. It's really hard because we give so much and we're so raw and we think that we walk into the rooms and everyone is there with the right motives for the right reasons, and everyone is honest and open and can be trusted. And sometimes we learn the hard way that that's just not true. I've never had that personal experience. I've been very fortunate, but I've known people who have had that experience, and it's unfortunate. Um, if I just invite them to trust again, know that people and places and things could be the reason we stay sober, and certainly, we need to stay sober and clean for ourselves, not because of what somebody does. It's just like any relationship. Sometimes people are going to let you down. Sometimes they're going to meet or exceed your expectation. And that doesn't mean that you stop pursuing a relationship because someone, uh, you know, uh, ends up lower than your expectation. Um, it just means that sometimes we have a grieving period. And this is why in the beginning, meetings are so important, and learning the steps. And we learn that not everyone is who they say they are. Um, but we just have to get back on that, bike, as it were, that old adage, and just, when we fall, we just have to ride, even though it was because of someone else. We had good intentions. We had good motives. We were trusting. It just somebody wasn't trustworthy. And, we just have to understand that human nature is not everyone is trusted, because we're dealing with alcohol and drug addiction, and we're not the most honest people on the planet. And that is why, in the beginning, we need to, my sponsor Will tells me all the time, we need to take other people's inventory. And if people out there say, don't take someone's inventory, you're wrong. Take the inventory. Just don't use that inventory against them. We tell you to stick with the winners, but then we tell you to don't take someone's inventory. That's not consistent. How do you know a person's a winner if you haven't taken their inventory? So we take their inventory for our well-being. And sometimes, sometimes we're too anxious to trust someone, without taking their inventory and really looking to see how their life is. And do they have other sponsees? So we need to do our homework in that area. But sometimes people, they're just deceivers. Sometimes a person goes back out and they'll tell a tale on their way out the door to make themselves look better, whatever their motive is. But don't allow a person or a situation or a thing to determine your own personal recovery. You have to recover because not recovering causes you greater pain than anything you could, experience in recovery.
Yeah, thank you for that, Robert. You covered a lot of that, and I loved all of that. Let me see what I've got for the next question for Whitney. Let's see. If you quit going to meetings, could you personally stay sober?
I think everybody's program is individualized, and whatever works for them works for them. But personally, meetings and working this program and the unity part of it, the service part of it, all of that has worked so far, and for someone like me who has tried every other avenue in their entire life to get sober, and finally at the end of the road, I find this last chance, and I just bite the bullet and do it, and it worked. I don't know why I would change anything I was doing. If it's working, I'm going to keep going to meetings. I mean, why risk it, and like Robert was saying, don't serve out of deficiency or don't do things out of deficiency. I think it's kind of the same idea with meetings. Don't go to meetings unless your motives and your intentions are pure and you want to be there and you want to help others and you want to bring something to the room. So yeah, I think meetings are super important. That is my own experience. I'm sure there are other ways that work, but for me, if something's worked up to this point, I'm not going to change anything about it. I'm just going to continue to work whatever's working. So,
let me add to that.
Yeah.
Number one, I agree with everything Whitney said, but bring it down to a real practical application. It would be foolish of me to think that I could drive my vehicle for the next year on the tank of gas I put in it yesterday. And if I drive my vehicle, I know by my gas gauge, and I have an internal gas gauge, I know when I'm getting low. And for me, just like Whitney, and for you, my filling station is the meeting rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, others may try different things, and if it works for them, just don't die from a treatable condition. That's all we ask. I don't care if it's AA or NA or church, or it doesn't really matter to me. Just don't die for something. Don't die of cancer if you don't have to. Don't die of diabetes unnecessarily. Take your insulin and take it accordingly. But I went and filled my vehicle up the day before yesterday, and I got about half. You know what? And tomorrow, I'll go to a treatment center and I'll go to a meeting right after that. I don't go because I have to. I go because I want to. Same as you, same as Whitney. If something, like Whitney said, if something works, why mess with it? It works. Now there are times when I've gone to less meetings, and there are times where, I've gone to the right amount of meetings. And sometimes we're able to sustain ourselves with fewer meetings. Sometimes life happens. We get rather busy. We get, we get sidetracked. We get project minded. We're doing other things. So sometimes I might go to 2 meetings a week. Other times, like a normal week, I'll go to 5. I don't go because I have to. I go because I want to. In the beginning, we all went to meetings because nobody else wanted us. There was no other place to go. The rooms of recovery were the only places that said keep coming back, and they meant it. So today I go because I want to go. I don't want to find out if I need to go. Why would I do that? Why would a diabetic roll the dice on not taking their insulin? It doesn't make sense. Why would why would I not go to my dermatologist to get regular checkups? I'm going back to my physician this Friday to get some blood work done to see what's going on. It doesn't make any sense not to go. And if we're truly working step 12, which is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message. Where else are you going to carry the message as good as you are in an AA meeting?
Yeah, and I totally agree with you guys too. It's like, and I heard someone say this one time. They said I could probably get by and stay sober doing less than I'm doing right now. But then they said, but I don't know what I would take out. Like I found this formula that has been working for me, and I'm the same as you, Whitney. It's like I just don't want to mess with it. It's been going smooth. I don't really want to push it. Let me see what we got next here. It says, and I go to you again, first, Whitney. It says, how can I stop chasing the rush that comes from using or
Oh, yeah.
drinking?
Oh, I remember in my earliest days how much that affected me. I remember the obsession was just maxed out, and all I wanted was to give my left arm for, a fix. Um, let's see. I'm trying to remember exactly what the question is. Sorry.
Oh,
I
yeah,
know
it
I got.
was, how can I stop chasing the rush that comes from using or drinking?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't remember the second half of that. Um, I keep drilling in this working of a program, and I think a lot of it has to do with the self discovery of having a spiritual having some sort of spiritual thing going on. God's not for everybody, but I think having a higher power or thinking something is bigger than you, even just in a humility type of sense. Um, that's what's been growing most for me in my recovery is my spirituality and the connection with a higher power, and I've relied on that a lot. When I have those moments, I rely on my higher power, and I rely on the little higher powers that are all around me, which this program has provided to me. How to stop chasing it? Eventually, it just if you're lucky like me, and the promises come true, like they say they will, and they promise, and they do. Um, that obsession will just be removed, and it sounds just impossible. It sounds like, you know, I just remember thinking I was unique, and that would never happen for me. And I sit here today, and I actually, I don't have those kind of impulses or those thoughts anymore. And it's a miracle. And it's the promises coming true in my life. And I don't know how else to say it, but just to work this program because it works. So I know I emphasize the 12 steps a lot, but it's what's worked in my life. And I strongly recommend it for somebody that's at their last try.
Yeah, it was the same way for me. It was the last thing I tried, and for me, the only thing that worked. I want to go to you with this question too, Robert. How long, or were you able to stop chasing the rush that comes from using or drinking?
You know, I replaced it with the rush of going to meetings. Um, I I believe, and this is where the 12 steps really come into play, and good sponsorship and meetings and all the ingredients that we need to bake this cake we call sobriety. Um, I think just like good pushes out evil and light pushes out darkness, I believe that going to meetings and being around people like you and Whitney um, become more valuable to me than because I get to know you sober, and I like you more than I do people at the bar or the drug den where I need to get drunk or high before you and I become friends. And so you replace. I don't stop doing, you know, Stephen Covey says that every major scientific breakthrough came from a break with. So I'm breaking with the darkness so the light can shine. And just over time, that's why we need to continue to go to meetings. That's why we need to hear, just like positive thinking pushes out negative thinking. I need to start saying positive things about me and remove negative words in order for the positive to become who I am. And the same way with recovery. In the beginning, because I'm such a tangible person, the safety net of the bar, of the drug den, is attraction to me. But over time, you're the only people I know that liked me no matter how I showed up. And because I was a liar who wanted to be honest, and you brought out the honesty. You told me that honesty was a safe place for me to be. It's hard living a lie. You have to remember what you said, who you said it to, and how you said it. And I always have to refresh the lie. What did I tell him last time? What did I tell Drew? What did I tell Whitney? Where was I? Who was I with? What was I doing? And I would walk into rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I could tell you the same story. And I didn't have to be afraid. And you liked me, and I liked that a lot. And over time, just you displaced, not replaced, but displaced. You pushed out by your presence the negativity that was surrounding my life. And with those relationships came the drugs, came the alcohol. And with you came sobriety, which I became employable again. People that wouldn't talk to me now talk to me. The law stopped chasing me. I got my driver's license back. The loan company stopped looking for my car at 3 a.m. All these things. And I like that, and that came from liking you and letting you like me. And one of the things that we have found out, we're a highly likable person. I mean, I love Whitney. Whitney is just fun. She's energizing. She's attractive to be around. And I just like that relationship, just like I like hanging out with you. And look, we're not even drunk. We're not even high. We're not even thinking about it. And yet there's an attraction that we have toward each other. The big book says, which is indescribably wonderful.
Yeah, and it is nice just to be. I like how you put all that too, and just to be able to live life without, like you talked about the lying. It took me a lot. I used to lie when I didn't even need to. The truth would serve me better, and I'm still lying about stuff. I dig deeper holes with that. It's just nice not having to do that in recovery today. Thank you for that answer, Robert. I'm going to go over to you, Whitney. This one's a kind of an easier one. It says, did you have problems other than alcohol?
Oh, that is a great question. And absolutely. Oh my goodness. As much as I am an alcoholic, I am also an addict. And, it was one of those situations where if you have it, I want it, what do you got kind of thing. So I've gone through ages of, and, uphills and downhills of different kinds of narcotics and whatnot. But, yes, I definitely am, I guess you could just say I do it all, I was about all of it. So is that the question?
Yeah.
Was there something else to that? Sorry.
No, I just said, did you have problems other than alcohol? I will ask
Yeah.
this though. How do you, for your recovery today, do you stick to just AA? Do you ever do NA? How did you kind of decide where you were going to go to meetings at?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I went to treatment down here in Orem, Utah, at a place called Reflections. And, depending on what treatment center you go to, some people are really 12-step oriented. Some people are, different ways like Smart Recovery. But the treatment center I went to was very 12-step oriented. And like I said, I was super resistant because I had put myself in the rooms before, previously. And I never caught the bug. I never saw what the fuss was all about. It didn't work for me at the time, or I just wasn't ready for it. And at this reflections at this treatment center, we were forced to go to a 12-step meeting every day, and it usually was Alcoholics Anonymous. And so that's kind of where I've stayed. But any chance I have to go to NA or CA or any of those different meetings, I'm all about it because I like the variety. I can relate anywhere I go, and you get a little something from every different program. But and they all kind of run a similar, 12-step thing. But as far as what program I work as with the sponsor and the steps I do, it seems like AA is the one that's really working for me. And so as far as working the program and working the steps, I stick to AA. But yeah, I think any program out there, any room you can go in that is going to help your recovery and keep you going, it's a great way to go. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I did a bunch of drugs as well as drank, and I ended up finding everything I needed in AA, and I tried other meetings too. I'll go wherever. I like to hear from different people that did different stuff. And I like what you said earlier, Robert. It's like, we're not saying you have to do 12-step stuff. However, you can get sober and live a better life. We're all for it. It's just if you've tried everything else and you weren't able to find a way to turn things around, like, come join us type deal. Let me see what I had next for you, Robert. It says, how does one stay clean as they go back into their old neighborhood?
Oh, sometimes we're kind of locked into a circumstance, and that can be really hard for a newcomer who's really raw. One day they're in treatment or a meeting, and then they have to go home to a situation that is just sick of codependency. Maybe they have a spouse that is still using. There's a lot of things that can go on that make it very unhealthy for that person. That is why we need to want to stay sober more than we want to breathe. I think if you can avoid slippery slopes, you stand less of a chance for going off a cliff. But sometimes that's inevitable. Working in treatment centers and either as a counselor or as a person who volunteers, same as we both have, Whitney has done that. And I'm sure you have done that as well, Drew. Sometimes people, they leave treatment and they go into a sicker environment. And especially with the significant other codependency, sometimes people we go back to don't want us well. They don't want us to recover because my recovery my light exposes your darkness. And if you're not ready to embrace the light, you need me to be dark. So you may say that you want me to get sober. You may say that you want me to be well, but you're conspiring, you're sabotaging me so I relapse, so I don't shine the light anymore. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, and that is why we need meetings. That is why one of the reasons why we need meetings. That is one of the reasons why we need sponsorship. Getting sober in Las Vegas, I was a room service waiter and I was back serving cocktails, at 60 days sober in Fitzgerald's restaurant, between midnight and 8 a.m. It's the only job I could find. And I used to have so I would have to go back into the casinos every single night, 5 nights a week, just to make a living, just to pay child support, just so I could pay my court fine, so I didn't end up in jail. And I talked to my sponsor about motives and why I was where I was at and why I wasn't where I was at, conversely. And we talked about motives. Why am I there? Am I there because I have to or because I want to? You know, and determining the motive for why someone is at a place will help set the stage. Sometimes people are in untenable, very difficult situations. All the more reason they need to be in a meeting. All the more reason they need to surround themselves with people of recovery. Some people's situation is very challenging, very difficult, but that just means we need to up our game. And getting sober in Las Vegas, trust me when I tell you, not only did I know everything was available, uh, compulsive overeating, pornography, drug addiction, gambling, alcoholism. I mean, they attract you with neon lights, always promising of wealth and free drinks and free buffets and scantily clad women and all of the above. And I had to find out that I could get sober anywhere under any circumstance. That's how much, because if we were trying to breathe, if you would struggle to catch your breath. And that's sometimes what we have to do in recovery. But every person is going to be different. Every situation is going to be different. And that's where relationships really come into play. So I can go to Whitney, I can say, man, this is really hard. This is really hard going back with this person, going back in that living situation. And Whitney can talk me off the edge and back to the center again, where I can breathe and I can say, okay, at least somebody understands. One of the biggest challenges of early sobriety is we don't think people understand. But we who have been sober for a while, we may have drank differently or used different drugs or been around a different socioeconomic situation. But at the core, we understand each other. It doesn't take us long for me to know that Whitney understands me and Drew understands me and we understand each other. And that's all I need is I just need someone to understand, someone to make me feel like I'm not alone.
Yeah, I love how you put that, and that's something that just it pulled me in right away. The understanding, finally being in a place where I could talk to
Yeah.
those around me about what was going on, and I've said this before, but I had people that didn't drink like me telling me how to not drink, and it was a disconnect. I needed people that understood what it was like, and they drank like me, and they understood what it was like when I put the stuff down, and then with the things that was going on in my head, kind of leading me back to a drink. And I like how you put that, Robert. Thank you for that. Let me see. I'm going to ask you, Whitney, how long did it take for you to start enjoying sobriety?
Um, that's a great question. I was in a really dark place when I went to treatment. I mean, definitely at my bottom spiritually, physically, in every way. And so it took a couple weeks in medical detox, and then I went straight to, an inpatient program, and um I didn't enjoy any of that part. I didn't enjoy any of the, getting thrown into treatment. But the moment I decided to admit that I was completely hopeless and that I was completely beat by that game and that lifestyle, it won. It finally won. I turned in my ticket. Um, that kind of surrender is where I had a turn. That's where I kind of went around the corner with things and was able to start to see little bits of light. And luckily, when you're in a treatment center, a lot of those things are brought to you. But like we had a panel that would come in once a week every Wednesday night, and they were, it was an a panel, and they would just kind of share their story. Um, 5 of them, and then answer any questions. And the first spark of light and the first little bit of hope that I received in my early recovery was brought to me by those meetings. And that's also what lit my light with the AA program. But it's kind of like once you get that little bit, that taste of hope, then you chase it and you start to realize that, well, for one, that you can feel again, and for two, that, you're not completely blocked spiritually anymore, because, you're at least out of that fog. But those things just kind of compound, and then it's like you chase this feeling of recovery, and you chase that little bit of hope, and which seemed impossible a month ago, but you chase that hope, you chase that feeling of like, oh, I don't feel totally like complete death right now, like you have a soul, you're getting your soul back, and you're building a contact with your higher power. And for me, when I was able to kind of spiritually reconnect, that's when it all took off for me. So yeah. It's-
I really want to add, because I really love the way you put all that, Whitney. As you were talking as a person in recovery, I translated as a person who was in active addiction.
Mhm,
And all of the reasons you were staying sober were all the reasons I got high,
mhm.
because I was
Yeah,
chasing that hope. I was chasing dope. I was wanting to please someone else. I was wanting to please, so every reason you gave for staying sober were all the reasons that I would get high. I was just
right.
chasing something, and and it reminds me of and I told this to people more than once. My middle name is Moore, and I found out early on that we don't have to stop being more. We just have to change what the more is. And with the same energy, Whitney, that you're pursuing, how you pursue drugs and alcohol, you're now pursuing recovery. And the same with you, Drew. I feel your energy. You're on Instagram. You're just always active. Your middle name is still Moore. You just change what the more is. You're still chasing, hoping, but today what you're chasing is aligned with life, not aligned with death. And that's exciting. So thank you for that, Whitney.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I like how both of you put that, and at the end too, Robert. It's like we're still chasing. We were chasing
Yeah.
addiction. We were chasing in recovery. It's we're addicts, alcoholics that are sober now, and we still love a chase. Except now it's not destroying our entire life.
Yeah. Yeah. We can
Right.
actually attain what we're chasing. We
Yeah,
would never catch what we were chasing in our active addiction. But in our active recovery, I can actually catch. I can actually be a good husband. I can actually be a good father. I always wanted to be, but I was doing things contrary that weren't aligned with the things I said I want to be. Now I'm in alignment with who I say I want to be and the things that I do. And I catch the dream all the time. I mean,
yeah,
Whitney
and
knows me. I always catch a dream.
yeah, and it's when I was in the bar, I had all these things I wanted to do. I had all these goals and dreams. I talk about it like this. In addiction, I had a lot of stuff that I wanted to do, and in recovery, I can actually do it, which is
Yeah.
aligned with what you were
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, yeah. We're now we're going in the direction of the things we said we wanted.
Yeah, we're going in the direction, and this stuff is finally aligning. It's
Yeah, and
finally
we're
possible.
actually catching it instead of wondering why I'm not achieving this or I'm not achieving that. We're actually achieving. You know, Whitney just bought a condo. I mean, who would have thunk that, right? She's
Right.
in her own place.
What?
She's doing, yeah, crazy, huh? Whitney's very successful in more ways
Oh,
than.
Wow.
thank you, Robert. That is nice.
How does that feel, Whitney?
Oh, I can't tell you. A year ago, I would have never thought I could have a life I do today. And I mean, just to think of the difference, and not only, the materialistic things that have come to me, and working hard or whatever for them, but um spiritually, and as a person, like the transformation that has taken place. I mean, I barely recognize when I tell my story or talk to people about my past, I feel like I'm almost talking about an entirely different person. Like I don't
Who is this
recognize
person?
that person. Yeah, it's like, it's crazy that something like this disease can make us do things like that we have done. And it's mind-boggling, but to see the transformation in not only me but other people, it's a miracle. And I love to watch it happen with other people. And that's part of this little, the buzz that we get from this, the itch that we keep scratching. It's like seeing other people, and it's made us so, I mean, I don't know, for me, from my own perspective, it's made me such a less selfish, less you know, I don't know, there's so many things about my personality that this addiction and this disease used to flare up, and it's like everything that would flare up is now just the complete opposite, and it's been great to feel the difference, and to have peace of mind in my life, and to go to bed with peace and to wake up with peace. I'm not chasing chasing the dragon every day. It's just nice. It's very nice to be where I am today. And I know I can't just, settle. Like, we just keep going with this and working harder and keep, trying to give the next person what we would been so freely given, So I'm just, yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
I love the laugh. Isn't it just amazing where we've been transported from to where we're at today? And what's really cool is tomorrow you'll wake up in your own bed.
Right.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And
I'll have a bed
I'll
to
wake
go
up and
sleep
I'll
in.
know what I did tonight, which is
Yeah.
wild.
Who would have
It's
thought
mind
that's
blowing.
possible?
Yeah.
All right, guys, let me see. I'm gonna do one more question each. Thank you so much for being on here. Let's see. I will go to you real quick, Whitney, and then I'll go to Robert. I'll close us out here. Whitney, this question is: how do I navigate sobriety if my best friend is still using?
Oh, yeah. That's really hard. And that's really common too, I was actually, years ago, I was on the flip side of this. My best friend got sober and started working this program, and was doing it very successfully. And I remember being on the flip side. I was still in my active addiction, and she made a strong point. And I remember it was just the way she did it was with such class. But she simply asked me, without saying, trying to shame me or anything. She simply asked me to keep to keep my distance, and just that she needed space for however long, and that it wasn't that it was going to be the end of our friendship or anything, but she just needed space. And I thought that was, even being in active addiction and having such misled thoughts and reactions to things, even then, I thought that was so appropriate. I thought that was so, I don't know, she just handled it well. And I was able to respect that and give her the space that she needed. And later on, we were able to have a friendship because, I mean, later she works this program and works the steps, and she's able to spend time with me. She's able to even go into a bar with me, but it takes time. And for someone that's in that situation, I would just say, be selfish, in the beginning, be selfish, and whatever, if it means, giving this person space or asking them to give you the same, that's entirely what you have to do, and, I mean, for me, with the friends that I had to put space from, right off the bat, I thought, oh, how am I going to live without these people? How am I, going to not have a friendship with them? How am I not going to see them all the time? And as time's gone by, and I've gained this whole new community of awesome sober people that I'm just so grateful for. Those relationships have kind of just faded away, and they've waned out, and um there a lot of them are still in active addiction, and I just don't want that anymore. That's just, if I think about it, the only thing we had in common, most of these people that I used to run around with, was the fact that we got high together, or drank or whatever. But yeah, I would just say be selfish, and work a program, find a sponsor for sure, and just take the space you need, and find what works for you. So
Yeah, I really like how you put that. Robert, do you want to comment on that one real quick, and then I'll ask you one other one?
I I think we, in order to help someone else, we have to be, number one, capable of helping them. Um, and we, and Whitney brought about, it's, there is a degree of selfishness, but it's not, because it's we and us, and, you know, and ourselves. Mm. Though we have to release that person, because to engage them on the level that they need to be engaged to feel validated, we have to use. And the best friend we can be to someone else is to get well. And sometimes we have to say goodbye when we want to stay. But for our own self-preservation, we have to say goodbye. And just like we have to say goodbye to alcohol, we have to say goodbye to drugs, which became the best friend I had, because it would tell me that things were okay when they weren't. And and sometimes we just have to dissociate, sadly.
Yeah, I like how you both put that, and I've had those situations where friends that were using, and the thing was, is it was hard drugs, and it was just stuff that there's no way I could be around it. I just was not in a place to even to sit around it, or to see them high, and and it was early on in sobriety, and the distance had to be there. I had to put up a wall with that. And I like that you talked about, Whitney, your friend, not entirely closing the door, but saying, "Hey, look, with what's going on with you, I need some space, but we could always, rekindle a relationship if we both end up sober, or whatever the case is." I want to ask this question to you, Robert. It says, if you could do something different from when you first got sober to now, what would it be?
Be honest. I think honesty was the reason that I relapsed. Um, I was so afraid that if you knew who I was, where I went, the things I did, you wouldn't like me. And it really kept me from being honest. And the reality was that the more you knew who I was, where I went, what I did, the more you liked me. It was so foreign to me, it scared me. Uh, but I, but if there was, my relapse at 71 days was because I wasn't willing to be honest. When I came back, honesty meant so much to me, because when I came back, you didn't ask me where I was, what I did, who I was with. You just said, "Welcome back." And that was the indication, that was the evidence that I needed to know that I would be welcome regardless of who I was. And if I could have saved myself that relapse, I would have. So I think being um, and it's not by accident that how we stay sober. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Honesty in step 1, open-mindedness in step 2, and willingness in step 3. No one gets sober without HOW. Honesty is the key ingredient to everything else we'll ever do.
I love that. It looks like we just lost Whitney, but I saw her come back in, and then I think she was lost again. I just want to say thank you, Robert. I appreciate you guys, and I'll say this to her if she gets back on, but I appreciate you coming on every time. It's been such a fun experience, and I think that those that listen to these episodes really enjoy it. I see comments back from it, and and I see it get a lot of plays compared to other episodes. And it's a lot of fun, man. So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate Whitney coming on. What is next for you? I will finish off with that. What is next for you in your schedule with either treatment centers or any goals of yours? Do you have anything you're kind of trying to achieve at this point?
Yeah, I'm in a treatment center tomorrow, Brighton Treatment Center in Salt Lake City, and then I'm speaking in Boise. I'm trying to cut my travel down to once a month. So I'm speaking in Boise, February 15th, and I'm trying to finish my book. It's called Becoming Well Now: A Journey to Recovery. And so I'm a couple podcasts behind. I got to get those done. As you know, there's a timeline to that. But I discovered a few helps that will help me finish my book. I've got all the content already written. I just have to organize it and compile it and put it into a usable format, then find a publisher. So I'm probably about 2 months away from that. So that's taken a lot of my work.
Oh, that is exciting. How long have you been working on that?
For 8 years. Well, I've been compiling for 8 years, and I want to get it done by my 39th sober birthday, which is coming up in April. So that's my goal. That's my timeline. That'll be that'll be the final piece in my legacy, other than dying of old age.
That's cool. I look forward to reading that. That's exciting. I did not know that, and that is super exciting. Thank you again, Robert. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Hey, and if we can talk Whitney into it, she'll join us next month.
Yeah,
I'd love
bring her on.
to.
Let's go.
I've really appreciated the opportunity, and I'm so grateful.
All right, you made it through another episode. Thanks again, and if you'd like to collaborate or come on the show, please email me at thesoberfixpodcast@gmail.com. Have a great day.